Good afternoon, students. So let's start our first seminar. So hopefully this is the first one. We will have 9 more. I hope this semester will be very productive for all of us. And please, a kind request, make your phone silent mode. As I already mentioned during the lecture, if you have to talk, please go outside and finish your talk and join. Or if you want to chat, again, go outside, finish your chatting and join. Okay? No problem. Good. So then start. So today we have a lot of things to cover. All right. First of all, I would be really happy if students come reading certain news, which is related to our topic. Okay. So before coming, if you had a chance to read any news or watch any news or hear from someone, and you come and discuss here just for 5 minutes, no more than 5 minutes, it will be a great job. Okay? And one of those, news websites that you may consider is Tribe. Okay? Tribe. If you log into this site, there are lots of interesting, finance-related, economics-related, political-related articles, okay, which you can read, and you may, if you like, enjoy reading. Okay? So, for example, if you go home today and open that link, most probably you will come across with these first 2 headlines, okay? First one is about currency war. The second one is the problem in Hong Kong that's going on today. Alright? So these are the news that you may consider. So because I did not ask you to read any news earlier, so please next time if you read, it would be a great job. So even though you did not read, maybe you may have some suggestions regarding news, right? What did the text that it's written, what does it discuss? Regarding the first one, for example, here, should we worry about the currency war? Who can tell me what currency war means? What does it mean?
That's the situation between USA and we can just discuss it in case of USA and with China. They have struggled with a great deal. I mean, Trump has last 2 months ago he said that they will put their priority, and that's why there is big leap in exchange. Has occurred. And that's why now the dollar has risen, and that's why that's a big problem for developing countries. So that I think that's war between China and USA.
Okay, that trade war, very good point. Trade war causes that currency war as well, right? So for example, in this article, if you have a chance to read, President Trump, now he's blaming Federal Reserve for certain things. So these days they are keeping interest rate very high, which means that there is higher demand for US dollar, which means if there is higher demand, that currency is going to be appreciated, right? Which means American US dollar is going to will get stronger and stronger. Is it bad?
Bad. For USA, that's good.
For USA, that's good. But why is President Trump is saying that it is bad?
Because Trump is stupid.
No. Because the world community can just change the world currencies. Now the US dollar is world currency, and they are trading. Each country is trading with US dollars. But now European countries, Russian Federation and others, they are trying to create their own
Currency.
That's why he thinks, Mr. Trump thinks that that's the problem is.
Okay. Good, thank you for your suggestion. All right, actually, why Trump is blaming Federal Reserve, and he's saying that keeping or appreciating the value of US dollar is bad, because if US dollar appreciates in the United States, it will be difficult for other country people to buy more from American goods. Do you understand?
Yes.
So now, if we want to buy any American good today, because it appreciated, we have to pay more, which means their export will suffer, which is bad, okay? Which is bad. On the other hand, as that gentleman said, China is doing vice versa, which, $1 US a few months ago was, 6.2 yuan, but it almost reached 7. Chinese goods and services were very cheap, so people like to buy it. But now it is even cheaper. So which gives opportunity for Chinese, exporters to export more. And why they are saying, currency war, it's not about them too only, all right? There are some other countries, they are following the same trend. Like, for example, in Korea, they are, Korean won is, appreciate, or they won't try to depreciate. And Japanese also, they are doing the same. So that is happening, okay? If currency war happens, then there will be unfair competition in trade. Do you understand? So please next time, try to read any news. Thank you very much for those sharing your ideas. So now let's start. I hope you all reviewed the lecture material. And at the end of the lecture, I showed you there are many slides left, which is not, directly related to our lecture, but it's very important to know. It was about GDP and types of GDP, real GDP, nominal GDP, and GDP, okay? I hope you had a chance. So, first of all, let me ask you a question. How do we know, okay, whether a person, an individual, is doing economically well or not?
According to their profits.
According to their profits. What do you mean by saying profits?
If they earn more, that means that they are economically professional or something.
Okay.
They're
For example,
doing well in
can you
economics.
tell me about how much profit I'm making? By looking.
Yeah.
Or I will look at you and can I tell whether you are making certain amount of money? It's something like hidden, right? I'm saying you can see and say your suggestion.
GDP? We cannot say individual.
Individuals. I'm saying about individuals.
You should review the check account, bank account, and make a conclusion.
I think you want that.
There are many measures, right?
Yeah.
I can just look at you, the way you dress. If I see you're all wearing Levi's jeans or some kind of Calvin Klein T-shirt, I immediately make an assumption. The guy is wearing $100 jeans, at least $50 T-shirts. Yes, I think that student is from high-income family. Or if I see that lady is driving Ferrari today, let's say, I will definitely think that she is from very, very rich family. Yes? Or I see that guy, he just entered very luxurious building, very nice house, think that it belongs to him, I think that he's from very rich family. So there are many measures that we can see and just say. Alright?
But they are not correct. This Ferrari may be taken on loan or...
Yeah, there are always exceptions. Yeah,
It's
you're
like
right.
first impression.
But first impression, okay? Good. And there are exceptional cases. There are people who have billions of dollars, okay? And the way they dress is very simple, right? Or they drive, the cheapest car. For example, how about as a country? How do we know whether a country is doing economically well? Now it's GDP, right? So we said we know there is only one measure which is given for all countries. We look at the value of that GDP and we can make a judgment that that country is wealthy, that one is not. Right? Good. Alright. If we had a chance to read that attached book chapter in the intranet, it's from Mankiew's book, Essentials of Economics. Okay? So there are lots of good things mentioned about GDP. So, and it is the definition that he provided, yes? He said GDP is the market value of all final goods and services, right? Produced within a specific country in a specific period of time. So now I gave different colors because now I want to discuss it with you because each different color has broad meaning. What's the meaning of market value?
Means
Price
the
of
selling
products.
value, which this good is the price at which this good is sold.
Okay.
Not just the
Price of products.
Yeah, final price.
Final price.
Yeah.
Okay.
Price of
Is there any other thing besides the price?
price
Yes.
of products and related to the income of the person.
Quantity.
Quantity.
Yeah, no, not quantity, but like.
There's a real price and market price. Real price is a price with it's like total cost plus some percent of real property.
VAT, yeah.
But the real but the market price can be different. Yes, it depends on the demand and supply of this good.
Okay.
That's why they are saying about nominal real price, market price, which at which they are sold.
Okay. So when we say market value, all right, it's the only measure that gives us the opportunity to calculate GDP. Right? There are millions of types of goods and services. For example, vegetables and fruits. What's the measurement? Kilograms, yes? Any liquid thing like milk or some drinks, it's liters, right? Or electricity, kilowatts, or the internet that you are using is megabytes, yes? So each has its own measure. But mathematically, we cannot calculate and add them using their own measure. So 10 kilograms of potatoes plus 10 liters of milk, it's impossible, right? So therefore, economists or statisticians, they found the best way, which is price, as you already mentioned. Each good and service has its own price, which is market value price, okay? And GDP represents the aggregate price of that, of all. Okay, good. And when we say of all goods and services, what do we mean? Of all.
So let's imagine that one country produces only like cotton and water, just or like something else, t-shirts. So if the country has sold the t-shirts for $1 million and cotton for $2 million, so we just add them, and there is $3 million.
Of all.
Of all, yeah,
Yes,
that's
good.
the market value.
Yes, that's right. But are there any exceptions?
Yes, exported goods, we subtract them from all the market.
No, it's still value.
I mean, within the country.
I mean imported goods, not export, imported goods.
You know, it's also subtracted. Yeah, the value is considered.
And there might be like some services. The price of services that were produced within the country.
So there are exceptions. Okay, of all, it does not consider all. All right. For example, we have black market activities.
Yeah.
Yes, which is not included in our GDP. Okay. Illegal, for example, illegal businesses, right? For example, drug business. That one is not included in GDP. All right. Or, for example, home production. If you are living in a big house with a very big yard, having lots of types of fruits, and you grow your vegetables, you consume those nice fruits and nice vegetables with high quality, but you are not selling it or you are not buying it.
That's clear,
Right? Even though we are consuming it, it's not included in GDP. Those are exceptions. Or just consider your household. Family consists of parents and children, daughters, yes? And there is always some household chores, yeah? Cooking, cleaning, and some other stuff. There are two ways of doing those household chores. One is you do it by yourself, as we usually do, or you can hire. If you hire someone, then it will go to GDP. Otherwise, nothing will be included. Okay? Good. But when we say final, what do we mean?
New products. No, not raw products.
Not raw products.
Final products. Like
Yeah, look, just imagine that you are a supplier. You have produced something, for example, one bottle of water. So you have sold it for 20 cents. But the final, that will be in market. So market, how to say, customer, he just sells it for not 20, but 50 cents. So that will be final, I suppose.
Yeah, that's true. So I made a picture in the slide of meat. Okay? Meat. Or let's say I go to Chorsu or that Kazinka and buy a few kilograms of meat and bring it home, cook it, fry it, boil it, bake it, whatever, and I could consume it with my family members. Is it considered as a final good?
No. Meat which you bought is considered as a final good.
So it's final good, right? Because I already consumed. I'm not adding any value.
Yes.
It's final. But my friend who owns a restaurant, he goes to the same shop, buys, a few kilograms of meat, he brings, he adds some recipe, he makes kind of kebabs or some kind of food. Now that meat is no more final good.
Yes. So that means that GDP is not exact value. Has no such an exact value because
Actually, it has lots of shortcomings.
Yeah.
We'll talk later. Okay. So in that case, now final good is going to be that kebab that we sell, which includes the cost of meat. If in that case, if we try to calculate GDP including the price of kebab plus the price of meat, then it's going to be double counting. All right, which is wrong. It's final. Regarding goods and services, it's clear. Goods something tangible, services intangible stuff, right? And what about produced within a country?
in everything.
Local products.
Produced within a country. Let's suppose we have lots of businessmen, Uzbek businessmen, who are doing really good job in Russia. Okay, they have their own company in Russia. They are producing and they are making millions of, let's say, dollars. Is that millions of dollars that they are making? Is it added to our GDP?
No.
Because
It's added to Russia.
Russia.
Good point. So because it's in Russia, which is added to Russian GDP. So it's the same thing in our country too. Any businessman from outside or any investor who does business in our country, produces and does those market activities, all of that is included in our GDP. And what about the last point? In a specific period of time. It's usually
In a year, in a quarter.
1 year, right? Within it. Of course, if you will have a chance to the following level 5, this year through level 5, level 6, to study more the components of GDP. Okay, there are lots of things like inventory building, which is going to be subtracted the following year. These things are outside of the topic that you will know later. Good. So here's the question for you. Does GDP include the market value of the housing service provided by the economy stock of housing? It is a bit confusing. Here is easy one. Let's say Mr. Sardor, he rents a 2-room apartment in Tashkent. Okay? Which means he's a tenant, he's renting. And there is a house owner, that landlord, for him he's paying 1 million soon. Let's suppose it's all legal, okay? All based on contract. Is it added to GDP?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Because,
Okay. Because someone is selling, someone is buying.
JKH and other stuff that we have, I mean the apartments, so the price is included the price of water, electricity and other stuff. So that's the service. And
No, I mean just rent itself. Rent fees.
okay, but still he uses electricity and others.
That one you are right. If he pays that one, he will pay out of this 1 million.
Yeah.
That will be. I'm just thinking about this 1 million itself. But what about the second case? Let's say this person has 2.
Because like in first case, Sardar is paying money for the owner, right?
It's like
then
service.
it's legal. You said it's legal. So so some kind of percentage like taxes is going to go to the government. So it will be as a part of our GDP. And then second, there is no kind of such a service. No one is
But
paying
still,
for it. It's just his like his ownership of the house.
So it's not included. I see you have some different opinion. What do you?
Yeah, because if you own territory, I mean in square meters, so you have to pay. By the way, you have to pay. If that doesn't matter. Do you live in that apartment or not? You have to pay that for sure for GDP. Yeah.
No. Regarding that one, it's right. You pay tax, okay?
Yes.
You pay for bill, it's okay.
Yeah.
I mean about the rent.
Ah, right.
So, yes.
It's something
in terms
included.
of rent,
In terms of road, it's not included, right?
yes.
But it is included.
Because it's
Okay.
a service.
It is included. Statisticians, they make an assumption. It's an assumption that any person, needs a roof over his head. Okay? Whether he's renting or not, if he has it, it means as if he's renting it. They make an assumption. On average, they calculate, average, price that make that rent price, and they add for an individual. Okay?
How about it's illegal?
If it's illegal, of course it's not counted. We already said. How do we know? Right? How do we know? Okay, thank you. So now we will talk about the real GDP and nominal GDP. All right? These are very important macroeconomic indicators, economic indicators. Nominal GDP and real GDP. How are these two economic indicators different?
First is at current prices and second is at constant prices.
So first one considers current prices, yes. Second one considers constant prices. What do we mean by saying current and constant?
Inflation is unadjusted. Like
In which one?
In second, real.
In the second one, inflation is not adjusted.
Not adjusted, yeah. Not constant.
Here, inflation is adjusted. So you mean here, inflation is controlled, here it's not controlled. Yes? Is it true?
Okay, could you please bring an example?
So now I will give you an example and you will make a conclusion, okay? Whether what you were saying is right or not. Let's suppose. Let's take a data itself, okay? Simple one. 2019 is the year today, right? 2018, 2017, and blah, blah, blah. 1994 and more. 2019, 2018, 17, 1994, and so on. Okay. So if you go home tomorrow and wake up tomorrow today go home and tomorrow wake up early in the morning and go to Chorsu, that meat section, right, that place. If you want to really buy fresh meat for cheap price, you should go early in the morning. If you go early in the morning tomorrow, you will be able to buy 1 kilogram of meat without bones for 60,000. 60,000 soon. Okay? And last year, exactly the same quality of meat was 47,000. And in 2017, it was 41,000, or even 40. Alright? So, in 2016, I don't know because I was not in Uzbekistan that time. So now, by looking at these numbers, we are seeing the inflation, right? Right? There is inflation here now. When our country became independent in 1991, okay, our government adopted a coupon as currency. We had coupon money, we used it. In 3 years, we experienced hyperinflation, and we decided to change our currency in 1994. And the sum that we are using today is that, it's still 1994. We are using it, okay? Good. And if I'm not mistaken, In 1994, 1 kilogram of meat of the same quality used to cost 20 soon. Or maybe it was 30, anyway, okay, 20 soon. Alright? So now you can see the level, the magnitude of inflation within these years, right? 3,000 times more expensive. Alright? Good. And now, Lord, let's suppose that in our country we only produce meat and only consume meat, nothing else. In 2019, for example, 2 kilograms of meat was produced. In 2018, there was again same. In 17, it was again same. And in 1994, it was 2 kilograms, right? Same. If we calculate nominal GDP, what should we do? Just multiply the current price to quantity, right? Quantity is given, so if we calculate 120,000, yes. For 2018, it's going to be 94,000. And it's going to be 82,000. And for 1994, it was only 40. So, okay? So now look. Now please, just forget about these numbers, okay? And look at these numbers. Look at these numbers, nominal numbers. What will be your conclusion?
There was a high inflation.
No, we can say.
No, don't you are not seeing this thing, or you don't know. By looking at these numbers, you can say, wow, economically we are doing very well. Okay? Now 100, but in 1900 it was only 40, but now it's perfect, 120. Did anything change in your life?
No.
Nothing. Okay? So it is nominal GDP, which has inflation. When we calculate real GDP, it controls for that inflation. Alright? So, for example, question. So the meat that you are consuming today, does it have any difference compared to your grandparents' meat they consume?
No.
No. It is meat today, it was meat, and it will be meat. Onions are today onions, they were onions, and they will continue to be onions. Alright? So, real GDP considers that one, okay? Do you understand? So they now just ignore. They ignore and by making an assumption that there was no inflation. If it's 60,000 today, because it's still meat, it was 60,000 last year, assumption. No inflation. Okay? 60,000, they give the same price. Now it's the base year is 2019. And they give to 1994 too. The same price. And they multiply to quantity, which will show you exact change in your life. So are they all same now?
Yes.
Yes, right? Did anything improve in our life?
No.
No. It is real GDP. Okay? Real GDP. For example, another case. Let's say in 1994, because of certain reasons, okay, we were able to produce 100 kilograms of meat. But today we are able only to produce 2 kilograms. Now multiply nominal GDP, so if you multiply, it's going to be 2,000. And compare it to today. The numbers look very much bigger today compared to 1994. But actually, we were living how many times? 50 times better in 1994, okay? So here in real GDP, what matters is quantity. Okay? We make an assumption there was no inflation. So therefore, when you open data, you will find, you know, in those parentheses, constant 2010. Which means they considered the price of those goods for 2010 and applied for all years. Okay? Do you understand? Okay. So here are some. So therefore, which grows really, so the question, why, so which growth really matters for us? Real. Okay. Of course, nominal GDP is also shows the same if there is no inflation or very low level of inflation. When the level of inflation is too high, all numbers are exaggerated. Okay, good. So here is an exercise that we will do together. Okay, it's very easy. Very easy. Okay. Now let's calculate. So now let's suppose in Uzbekistan we produce only two types of goods. Okay. Only two. Apples and grapes. The prices are given and the quantity is given. Is there any sign of inflation? Yes, the price is increasing over the years, right? Regarding grapes also, the prices are changing. Okay. So now let's calculate nominal GDP. How do we calculate nominal GDP? First of all, we should pick up a good, right? One good. And we have to find that good's price, yes? And that price should be today's price, current price. And we multiply to the quantity of this good, which is going to be today's quantity, current quantity. Plus, if we have more than one good produced in the country, then we will pick up the second one. Price of the second good in current value, we multiply to the quantity of second good in current number, and so on. If you calculate it for 2015, so the first good is apple. Yes? What's the price of apple?
3,000.
It's 3,000. It is current price in 2015. And the quantity produced was 10. Second good grapes, the price 6,000. And the quantity produced 5. So if you get the sum, it is equal to 60,000, which gives us nominal GDP, let's say of Uzbekistan for 2015. Measured in millions or billions, whatever. Okay? Let's calculate it for 2016. So now, which price do we consider? Current price. What is current price? 4,000. Right. 4,000. Quantity is current one 15 plus 8,000 of grade, the price of grade multiplied by 10. So now 60, 80, 140,000, right? And if you do the same for 2017, you will get, so now the price is 5,000 times 20 plus 10,000 soon, the price of grade, 15. So it is now 100, 150, 250,000. I think it's very easy, right? Very simple math. And now look at the change here. Compare to the previous year now, our nominal GDP is greater for 80,000. If you compare these 2 years, 110,000, right? Very significant change. Whether these change are true or not, we should check real GDP. So now let's calculate real GDP. Real GDP. What's the formula of real GDP? Again, you choose one good and find its price, but the price should be constant based on base year. Now I will explain. Constant price, but the quantity should be current quantity plus price of second good, still constant, and quantity should be current. Let's calculate for 2015. Look, now we are saying base year is 2015. Base year is 2015. What does it mean? We should consider the price of 2015. Alright? So now, the price of 2015 of apples was 3,000 times quantity produced current, 10, plus 6,000 the price of grapes, times 5, which is equal to 60. Why real GDP of 2015 and nominal GDP of 2015 is same?
Because inflation, that's a base year.
Base year. We are considering same price. But if we calculate for other years now, the numbers will change, right? Okay? So, what price should we consider now? 3,000. Because it's base year, constant. The quantity is 15 plus the price 6,000. Quantity is 10. Now if you calculate 45, 60, so it's 105,000, right? Okay. And you do the same for 2007. Again, you consider the same price, 3,000 soon, yes? Quantity is changed. And now we have 6,000 here, times 15, which is equal to 60, 90, 150,000. Is it correct? So now look at the change here. It's now only 45,000. And this one is 45,000. While nominal GDP tells us, 80, here 110. Do you see how much exaggerated numbers you can see here? Alright? If the inflation rate was even higher, it could be even higher. Alright? What really changed is this. Okay? What really changed is this one. So now you may ask a question. If real GDP is really shows how we are economically doing well or not, while nominal GDP is not able to do it, why do we need it then? Yes? Those statisticians, government, they are spending huge amount of money to collect this data. So this data, nominal GDP, is still very important economic factor. If you want to know the aggregate inflation rate in the country, we cannot find that one without this. So that GDP deflator, you divide nominal GDP to real GDP and multiply to 100, and it will give you that inflation rate. Okay? So it's still, and we use nominal GDP for many other purposes. It's important. Any questions? No? Okay, if you have no questions, it means you understood. Please do it by yourself. So if someone wants to do it on the board, you are very welcome. Yes, please. You can do it just here. Yeah, it's correct. It seems correct, yes. Now it's correct. 53,000. I think it's 116,000. I think it's 189,000. 103,600. 103, 600. Okay. And the last one? And it's 154,500. Thank you very much. I believe you got the same numbers, yeah? You got the same numbers. And again, when you compare these changes of nominal GDP with real one, it's very different, right? Now here the numbers are much greater, but here it's not. Okay? So Lord, the following exercise is homework for you. You can do it at home. Okay? So Lord, last year, when we had an exam, I gave to the students a similar question.
Can we bring calculator for example?
Yeah, no problem. Calculation, it's okay. No problem. So you can bring your calculator. So during the exam, as a module leader, I went to that examination room, and students saw me, and some of them raised their hands. I came to them, and they were asking me, you know, during the seminar we did it, the base year was 2015. I think there is a typo mistake. Why it's 2017? Okay? Which means those students did not understand the meaning of base year. If I put 2017 instead of 2015, what does it mean?
We have to change the price.
We have to use the price of 2017. Okay? So therefore, there were many students who did, they were not able to calculate real GDP. Still thinking it's type of mistake, they used 2015 price. Okay? Good. And another thing, here the data is a little different from the previous two cases. Why? Here, price is increasing while quantity is decreasing. Okay? So look, another thing is the percentage increase in inflation is greater than percentage decrease in quantity. Do you understand? Now, inflation percentage is now greater than quantity decrease, the percentage. So now, if you calculate nominal GDP here, let's suppose for 2015 it's 100, for 2016 105, but 2017 it's 110. It shows that economy is growing. But if you calculate real GDP, you will find vice versa. 100, 95, 90. Okay? There are that kind of cases too. When you look at nominal GDP, the numbers are growing, indication of economic growth. But if the case is like this, the numbers will be in real GDP declining.
So we take economics according to real GDP, right?
Yes, that's the good measure when we measure, economic well-being of a nation. Okay. So, and it was your homework, right? I asked you, I showed you in the overall, background. Please go home and read, open your internet and find out. What was the question? It's this one. I said, GDP per capita or GDP is the best measure available, but it has lots of shortcomings. And what are those shortcomings? There are so many. I hope you read some of them. What are the shortcomings of GDP per capita or GDP?
First shortcoming is that real GDP per capita assumes that all people in country are equal in their wealth and enrichment. Yes.
Good. It ignores income inequality.
Yes.
Very good. Yes. Nice. And any other?
And population, for example, if we will take as a we will consider Russian Federation, that the territory and the resources are enormous, but the population is only 180 million. But if we will consider China or India, they have a lot of like billions of population, and we should divide the GDP, real GDP, into for quantity of population, and then there will be like inequalities or not.
No, regarding that one, that's not an issue.
Also,
That's not
GDP
because you are dividing by population, so they are controlling it. Otherwise, for example, you can get Chinese GDP, okay? GDP, not per capita, GDP. And you get, you know, let's say Korean GDP, Korean, Chinese. If you compare, Chinese GDP is much greater than Korean. But if you, to avoid that problem, to measure the wealth of people, you should divide by population. Then it will show real number. Then it will come out that Koreans are living much better than Chinese. Okay? All right.
also GDP ignores this GDP ignores there's a percentage of people who are not economically active. I mean, childs and etc. And they uses they implement also these people in GDP calculation. Like newborn child cannot buy something by himself.
Okay, yeah, good thing. Good. When you study macroeconomics, there is a way to solve it. So there is GDP per capita, and there is GDP per worker.
Yes.
Okay, so they try to fix that issue. Thank you. Yes.
It doesn't count the goods produced at home, for example.
Oh yeah.
And environmental and quality of our living, for example.
Oh yes, very good.
And other thing is that GDP doesn't include our free time, like leisure.
Oh,
how
yes,
we
very
calculate
nice.
them.
Okay, you did a little. You did reading, really. Okay. So here, thank you very much for reading. Look, GDP counts bad as well as goods. So it's the meaning that GDP is not the indicator of happiness. Okay? Let's suppose one individual, okay, who works in Tashkent, and he earns $5,000 a month, which is very high salary in Uzbekistan, right? Okay. And let's suppose this gentleman who earns that money, because when we want to calculate GDP, we have to either calculate it based on income or spending, right? Spending. So now let's calculate it based on spending, how this person is spending his money. Using his salary, he bought, a very nice car, and he lives in a very nice house, and every day or every 2 days, he goes to a nice restaurant with his family to have nice dinner, okay? And he wears all good clothes, and he spends all of his money that way. Does he enjoy from his spending?
Yes.
Yes, of course. He's spending and enjoying, right? All right. And let's suppose there is another person, that person's colleague, who works together, earns the same, but his spending behavior is totally different. Because I don't want it to happen with any family, he has 2 children who are, infected by certain disease. So all of his money is spent for their treatment. Is he enjoying from his treatment?
No.
He is happy enough that he has that money, actually, but he is not enjoying it. He could spend that money like his friend, right? So which means he's spending, but he's not enjoying it. Is that first person's, spending included in GDP?
Yes.
How about the seconds? Yes, right? There can be the cases, the second person, people like the number is much greater. So therefore, GDP is not the measure of happiness. So therefore, when you look at the data GDP per capita, okay, you can see that, this one country where if you look at their GDP per capita, it is 10 times greater than Uzbekistan. It doesn't mean that those people are 10 times happier than us. It can be that, in reality, it can be that Uzbek people are living happier than them, even though their salary is 10 times greater. But on average, higher numbers also indicate happier life. But there are exceptions too. Okay? For example, 4 or 5 years ago, I don't remember exactly, in Nepal, something happened, right?
Earthquake.
there was an earthquake, natural disaster. In a few minutes, more than 6,000 people died. So many buildings and houses were just destroyed, collapsed by that disaster. GDP is usually counted, that components: consumption, investment, government spending, and net export, right? Because of that disaster, most probably I think government was spending a lot to rebuilding those buildings, to give welfare support for those people who went through those difficulties, okay? As a result, it significantly increased. Which increased? GDP. Maybe, compared, I don't know exactly, compared to the previous year, the GDP of Nepal was greater. But actually, the situation was much worse in the country. Okay? Good. Thank you. And our lady over here, she mentioned about leisure time. It makes no adjustment for leisure time. How do we understand it? Let's get country A and country B. And let's suppose both countries' GDP is exactly the same. 1,000 US dollars. And let's suppose in both countries there are only 10 people living. Okay? 10 people living. But the only difference is, in country A, people are working 40 hours a week to make this GDP. But in country B, they are working 60 hours a week to make this GDP. So what do you think? Which country people are living better? A. Because they have 20 additional hours to spend and enjoy.
Or they can work more and even earn more.
And even earn more money. Good, okay? Which, GDP, our GDP ignores. Regarding that non-official market activities, we already discussed, yes? Illegal or homegrown product. And I think I think that gentleman, he mentioned about that distribution of goods.
Inequality.
Yes. So let's suppose even ours is same. Okay? But the difference is, in country A, one person makes that 900, while the rest, 9 people, they make the rest 100. But in this country, every individual earns 100. So which country people are happier? B, there is income equality, while here there is income inequality. And what do you think about this single person? He's very happy. Yes? He may not be happy. In a society where income inequality is so severe, there is high level of crime and disagreement. I'm very sure that this billionaire, is not able to send his daughter and son just walk outside freely.
Or he is a ruler of this country.
Okay? So, because this kind of society is very bad, because income inequality is very severe. So next week we will talk about this issue, in more detail. So GDP isn't adjusted for pollution cost, I think she mentioned. Okay? So which means, let's suppose this given, there is no that income inequality issue, everyone earns the same. But the difference is, in country A, their production is based on service sector, while in country B, they based on heavy industry. GDP same, people are same, working the same, no income inequality. But the only, that type of industry is different. Does service make any pollution? No. It does, but very little. Yes. But what heavy industry? All mining, blah blah blah. It's so bad. So which means all these people's hand is always dirty air, pollution. Okay. Which country do you prefer to live?
A.
Of course, A. And here we have the last point that I picked up. GDP doesn't fully capture the benefits of technology. Let's just explain. All of you have your smartphones, yes? Which I will ask, please don't touch, don't use. So, and I'm very sure that you have lots of free applications, yeah?
Yeah.
which you use and enjoy, in case you have, plus, and you save money. Telegram, WhatsApp, those, social media. You are sending and paying nothing. It's self.
But we buy megabytes.
But anyway, you will buy it. Well, okay, anyway. Okay, that one, okay. But these things are not included GDP. Anyway, even though these are a few ones, there are many more.
Yes,
Many
also
more.
about last, GDP cannot count the amount of money which are transferred through the applications. I mean, technological money. It's on not only crypto wallet but Visa cards and etc. It not can exactly count which is transferred from one country to another.
Okay, good. So which means even though there are so many shortcomings, still we consider this measure as best measure. Why? Because it's the only measure which is available. Okay, good. So now there is an exercise which we will do now. Then I will give you 5 minutes break. Okay? So now we talked about real GDP, we talked about nominal GDP. Now we will talk about GDP PPP. Okay? We talked about real GDP. We talked about nominal GDP. Now we know that real GDP is better than nominal GDP. And now we will talk about GDP PPP, which means gross domestic product, purchasing power parity. Parity. Comparing two equal things based on their prices. If we were talking about them, so now we will consider some other stuff. I will explain.
Comparing two equal things.
Two equal basket of goods, actually. I said things. So look, we are saying a basket of goods. A basket of goods. A basket of goods. Alright? Let's suppose main consumption goods. Main daily consumption goods. To make it very simple, let's consider meat, okay? Sorry, meat, oil, and let's say rice. Meat, oil, rice. Okay, meat, oil, rice. A basket of which is quantity 1 kilogram of meat, 1 liter of oil, 1 kilogram of rice. In Uzbekistan, if you go to Chorsu, if you go to Karzinka or Makro, and if you want to buy this basket of food, you must spend how much? In Uzbekistan, you should spend 100,000 Uzbek soon. Okay? To buy it. But an American who lives in the United States, if he goes to Walmart or any other mart, okay, and he buys exactly identical good, basket of good, meat, oil, and rice, same. Alright? Same quality. How much is he spending for buying this basket of good? $100. Is it possible?
Or 200,000 Uzbek soons.
No, just consider this one, okay? So he is spending that much. And now we have another data given, official exchange rate in Uzbekistan. Who publishes official exchange rate?
Central Bank.
Central Bank. Official exchange rate, okay? Which tells us $1 is equal to 2,000 soon. Of course today is not the same, just suppose. Right? 2,000 soon, okay? Dollar to be 2,000.
Market.
Market, right? If there is higher demand for US dollars, it will be even higher. Okay, good. Then we have last one given, nominal GDP of Uzbekistan. Or you can consider even real GDP, there in this case no problem, okay? GDP is equal to 50 thousand, let's say, soon. Let's suppose. If you don't like these numbers, measured in millions, it's okay. 50,000 soon. So, all of these things are given. Do you understand? All right. So now we will let's calculate certain things. Number one, calculate Uzbekistan's nominal GDP in US dollars. Can you do it?
Yes.
Very easy, right? So what should you do? Number one, nominal GDP of Uzbekistan in US dollars. In US dollars. So we have to divide nominal GDP, right? Measured in Uzbek soon to official exchange rate. So 500,000 soon over 2,000, which is equal to $250. So according to this data, now we found out that Uzbekistan's nominal GDP is equal to $250. Let's suppose. So now calculating is so easy, right? So which means if you have a question like this in an exam, you can get no more than 1 mark. Okay? Because it's too easy. Number 2. 2-mark question. Find PPP exchange rate.
How to find?
Purchasing power parity exchange rate. It's even easier than this one, if you understand.
You should divide 250 by 100.
All right, look.
And
So let me explain. In the United States, what are they buying?
Meat, rice, and oil.
Oil and rice. In Uzbekistan,
The same.
meat, oil and rice. Are they identically same?
Yes.
Yes. Can I put this sign here?
Yes.
Yes, right? I can put. But their prices in their currency is different. Okay?
You should divide.
In US, it costs $100, yeah? But in Uzbekistan, it costs 100,000 soon. So now if you find how much $1 costs in terms of this one, it is PPP exchange rate.
What? 1/2?
If you divide both sides by 100, $1 is equal to 1,000 soon. So which we call PPP exchange rate. Look, this exchange rate I asked you, who determines? It determines supply or demand for US dollar. But here, this exchange rate determines basket of goods. We pick up exactly the same basket of goods and compare their prices. And it will give us PPP exchange rate.
It means like the goods which we can buy at $1 for $1 in US equals the goods which we are buying for 1,000 soms in Uzbekistan. Yes.
So look, actually comparison based on that one, yes, here. If we compare this exchange rate and this exchange rate, here it's 2,000, right? But here's only 1,000. The indication is our Uzbek sum is undervalued. Undervalued. So third one, calculate Uzbekistan's GDP PPP in US dollars. Again, it's very simple. What is different is instead of using official exchange rate, you have to use PPP exchange rate. Number 3. So GDP PPP in US dollars is equal nominal GDP measured in soon, okay, over PPP exchange rate. which is equal 500,000, which is given over 1,000. Oh, sorry, it's now dollars. Which is equal to 500 US dollars.
Why are you doing divide for 1,000?
Because we are calculating GDP, PPP. GDP, purchasing power parity, is derived using exchange rate for PPP. So therefore parity, comparing exactly identical baskets of goods. So fourth question will make it more clear. Explain the value differences between nominal GDP and real GDP. Or it can be even real, okay? GDP, PPP. Now our nominal GDP is 250, while our GDP, PPP is 500. 2 times greater. What does it mean?
GDP is what to exchange rate of GDP is
It's the indication that our life standard based on the, let's say, real GDP, it shows 250, right? But in terms of consuming these goods, we live this much. For example, I can give you an example. Let's say you go to the United States, okay? And let's suppose in the United States, average income, average salary is $3,000. And you find one average salary earning household and visit their house and check what they're consuming. All right, what they're consuming. You may see for 1 month they're consuming 5 kilograms of beef, 10 kilograms of rice, blah, blah, blah. Just count all of those things and come back to Uzbekistan.
You will see the same.
And you visit, you know, that average income earning household here. Let's say their average income is in Uzbekistan 2 million soon. 2 million soon. Is there any difference between $3,000 and 2 million soon?
Yeah.
Very great difference, right? And you check their, you know, the way what they're consuming. You may find out in terms of consuming in Uzbekistan, average, you know, that household, they're consuming more compared to Americans. It's highly possible. Do you understand? GDP PPP tells us this story. Compares based on those goods. Alright?
But it doesn't include the income.
It actually compares the prices of these baskets of goods. Income, we will buy it actually, okay? But it shows us. So, for example, regarding India, if you look at the data for GDP per capita, real GDP per capita, among those 200 countries, maybe it's somewhere, let's say, in the middle. But if you calculate Indian GDP PPP per capita, they are at the top. Maybe first 10 countries. Why? In India, these goods and services are very cheap. Okay? Please now have 5 minutes break. 10 minutes break, okay? I'm saying 5 minutes, but students are always coming 10 minutes, in 10 minutes. It's not illegal, it's just for the purpose, you know, for the convenience of future colleagues that are going to teach this module, and for students. Yeah?
In PPP, from $100 equals to 100,000 soons, we found that $1 equals to 1,000 soons.
Yes.
And what if it's like close numbers? What if like it would be different, like 520,000, 200,000 or something?
If it's, you know, this one is greater than this one,
Yes.
then now here Uzbek sum is overvalued. Then it can be undervalued. Look, here, let's say actual, you know, exchange rate is 2,000, right? $1 US equal to 2,000. But here it shows it's 1,000, right? Now our Uzbek sum is undervalued. There are other cases, let's say this basket of goods can be 3,000 as 300,000. Our actual exchange rate is like this one, but in terms of basket of goods, $1 can be equal to 3,000. And our PPP exchange rate, PPP, GDP, PPP can be much lower. Which means in Uzbekistan, goods are much more expensive. So now we have an answer. Now you can watch this video. It will be a bit more clear to you.
So, there's this fantastic Wikipedia list descriptively titled Wikipedia:"Unusual Articles." I just remember it as that Wikipedia list. It's a collection of hundreds of articles about unusual, unexpected, and unbelievable subjects. No matter what link you click, it's bound to be interesting. For that reason, every week I'm going to click on a new link and teach you a little bit more about our amazing world. McDonald's is everywhere. In the contiguous United States, the farthest you can get away from one is a spot in the Sheldon National Antelope Refuge in Nevada. Even then, you only have to drive 115 miles to the nearest Golden Arches. Around the world, there are more than 36,000 locations in 119 different countries. One of the defining characteristics of McDonald's is a commitment to consistency across the brand. While there are regional differences to the menu, such as kiwi burgers in New Zealand or chicken congee in Indonesia, the core menu items such as Big Macs, chicken nuggets, and fries are always available. That means that the same items are being made in the same way with the same ingredients in very different economies around the world. Obviously, Big Macs don't cost the same everywhere. A Big Mac costs on average $4.79 in the US, so if you were to charge the equivalent in Kenya, 480 shilling, nobody would buy it because that's double the average daily salary. That'd be like charging $200 for a Big Mac in the US. That's why McDonald's sets the local price for burgers based on a variety of factors such as labor costs, rent, ingredient costs, and local income levels. Now for some real economics. Purchasing power is the amount of goods you can get for one unit of currency. Let me explain. In the US, the average price of a Big Mac across all markets is $4.79. In Sweden, the cost of a Big Mac is 44 krona. 44 krona is equivalent to $5.13. That means that in the US, you can get 20.8% of a Big Mac for $1, while in Sweden, you can only get 19.5% of that burger. So in terms of the Big Mac, the purchasing power of the US dollar is higher. You get more bang for your buck. This also means that the Swedish krona is overvalued in terms of exchange rates by about 6.1%, at least according to the Big Mac Index. The Economist magazine first created the index in 1986 as an informal way of comparing purchasing power between currencies. So now let's look at the numbers. In Venezuela, the cost of a Big Mac is equivalent to 66 cents. That's the cheapest Big Mac in terms of equivalent US dollars in the world. This is largely due to recent currency devaluations and high inflation in the country. It's possible that the cost of a Venezuelan Big Mac will soon rise in response. This means that for the cost of one American Big Mac, you could buy 7 Venezuelan Big Macs. After Venezuela, the countries with the cheapest Big Macs are Russia, Ukraine, South Africa, and Malaysia. For the other side of the spectrum, the top 5 most expensive Big Macs come from Switzerland, Sweden, Norway, the US, then Denmark. That's right, the US is home to the 4th most expensive Big Mac in the world. What's also interesting is to look at how long it takes individuals to earn enough money to buy a Big Mac in different cities around the world. In Nairobi, Kenya, an average worker would have to rack up 173 minutes on the clock to pay for one Big Mac. Compare that to a worker in Hong Kong, who would only have to work for 8.7 minutes for a burger. The quickest one can earn a burger in the US is in Miami, where the average individual would only have to work for 10.7 minutes to pay for a Big Mac. Now, this index isn't perfect. While the cost of ingredients is pretty similar across all countries since all ingredients are held to the same standard, the index doesn't account for the wide differences in labor and land costs. A burger will cost less to make in India because McDonald's doesn't need to pay as much for employees and retail space. Nevertheless, this index is a great way of teaching some basic economics in a tasty way. Hi.
Okay. Just those students who came late, just remind me. I will double check your attendance. Okay. I don't know whether I checked yours or not. So now Big Mac index, all right, which we use to measure that PPP again. Why Big Mac? Now we consider, meat. Let's suppose in Uzbekistan, our main consumption goods. Let's make a basket. Number one important good for us is bread, yes? Then maybe meat. Then oil. Some vegetables. And some eggs, blah, blah, blah. You can choose just 10 of them, all right? And just think whether our consumption behavior is same all around the world. Whether all nations are consuming the same food or item that we are consuming. No, right? It's very different. If you go to Southeast Asia, instead of bread, they consume rice. Or Russians and Ukrainians, maybe they prefer potatoes instead of bread and rice, okay? So therefore, there is any basket of goods that we can choose and apply to all countries.
No universal one.
Yes, no universal one, as he said. There isn't any basket of goods that we can apply to all countries. But that statisticians, economists, they found some way to find it, so we have the data, but it's not actually a perfect one. And one way of solving that problem they find with Big Mac index. Big Mac. Why?
Because it's
as you already heard,
spread all over the world.
now it's in 119 countries. Maybe now it's 120, I don't know exactly. Let's say 119 countries, they have shops. And in each country they sell Big Macs. As you already heard, ingredients, whatever, the way of they cook is exactly the same. So therefore they chose that Big Mac as a basket of goods. Do you understand? Yes. Which consists of bun, meat, and some vegetables. Basket of goods. So they consider, which means that by taking that identical good, it gives an opportunity for us to compare how many countries? 119 countries based on that basket of goods, okay? So Journal of Economists, so they're publishing it since 1986, all right? It's one way. So now please, here we have a very simple exercise. Now let's suppose two countries, and suppose for simplicity, in Japan, Japanese people on average they earn $18 per capita, okay? While in the United States, their per capita is $16. If you compare, their per capitas, what do you think? Which nation people are richer?
United States.
United States, right? So on average, a Japanese person earns $2 more compared to American. Yeah? Good. Okay. So now, let's suppose these are true values, and Big Mac price is $6 in Japan, while it is $2 in the United States. So if we compare these values, what's the difference?
It's expensive.
Share, right? So it tells us that in Japan, the cost of Big Mac, it costs for people they have to pay 3 times more. Yes? Just for simplicity, let's make such an assumption. Suppose that Japanese and American people, they only consume Big Macs. Only. And they drink water for free. Which means that there isn't any other product available. What makes their life different is the number of Big Macs they consume. More Big Macs they consume, the happier they are. Alright? So here, if we find PPP for Japan in terms of the US, we compare these two prices, right? Which is going to be 1/3. 1/3. It will be 1/3. Compare these two. Okay? And what if we calculate GDP PPP? Because the basket of goods costs 3 times more compared to US. US price is still 16, while in Japan it's going to be 6. Because it's 3 times more, costs 3 times more.
I didn't get what happened.
1 was, so what? Now, it's 1 to 3, right?
Okay.
1 to 3. To get that GDP PBP, you divide 18 to 3 because it's 3 times more expensive. Then you get 6.
Right.
While it's only 1, which is 16. The price is 1 to 3. Is it right? So it is 16 now, while it's 6. So now we are comparing people's life based on Big Mac they consume. Let's suppose basket of goods. So here's the question: which country is richer in terms of basket of goods? Americans. Okay? So let's now move to our globalization issue. Okay, globalization. During the lecture, I hope you were listening very carefully. And I said that there are so many definitions of globalization. Alright? So many definitions. And can you give me any of them? Or you can give your own definition of globalization.
There are a lot of fields in globalization. The first one is in cultural way, the globalization. Second is economical, and so on. For example, globalization, like excellent. For example, on movies that we have, or products that we have, and currency as well.
It's integration of another country's culture to another country's culture and economics and etc. All.
Okay.
All the spheres are like touched in this process.
Okay. In addition?
As he said, he just mentioned, globalization, of course, is like interaction. It can be between two people, two different people, companies, nations, and etc. And it might happen because of trade, investment, and migration, and other things.
Good, good. So, if you open your exam, questions, and there is a question, define globalization, all right? One way is you have to memorize those definitions given in the slide. Yes? Or another one is you write what you really think is globalization. If your words make sense, I will give you what the mark that you deserve. It's okay still. You don't have to memorize. So, as you already said, I like the first definition. So it starts with integration of people, companies, and governments. Okay. One Uzbek is, interacting with Russians. We learn Russian culture. They learn Uzbek culture. Then we will find, one way of thinking. We start trying to integrate with one another. We already integrated actually now. Yes. If we take any other nation, still. Companies too. If we use, let's say, German technology, and we are, following their way of business, our, companies will integrate it the way they do it. Governments too. There are so many countries, they use American style of ruling the country. Or Russian style of ruling the country. It's like in terms of ruling the country. Or we become similar. And I said there are 3 main components. I said 3 main, okay? Not all, main ones. And what were they of globalization?
International trade, international investment, and
International migration.
Okay. We listed these 3, right? International trade, investment, and international migration. So it doesn't mean that there are only 3 components, right? They are main components. There are many more that causes globalization. Hundreds, thousands of reasons, okay? But here's the question for you. How can war, okay, those killings, whatever, be a component of globalization? Yes, Jeffrey.
For instance, when the Second War ended, not only the Second War, while we have war, we have winners and losers after the war. And once one side wins, this country tries to integrate his customs, his currency, his business habits, and etc. all to this country. For instance, you can say that we are losers of war against Russian like Tsarskaya Russia, not Federation. Yes, and they implemented their
Yes, so now
language and etc. For instance, or we can take as example Great Britain and India interactions, or etc. Or African countries with France.
Good, yes, very good. So therefore I gave this picture, the African continent, that decorated with different flags which do not belong to this continent, right? Which they do not belong here. They are colonizers, right? Where if you go to these areas, you definitely find their culture, their way of business, okay, and migrants. South Africa, for example, so many British people, they migrated and lived there. And a good example that he gave regarding ourselves, our country, we were under Russians, they were now in Tashkent mostly. There are lots of households, their way of life is very close to Russian style, yes? And we have so many businesses and migrants moving here and there. It's second largest population after Uzbeks in Uzbekistan is Russians. Okay? Good. All right. Who are the winners and losers of international trade? Let's first tell me about the winners. Who gains from international trade?
Companies.
Who makes more profit?
No. It depends. For example,
Depends.
there is like one thing in globalization, it calls Americanization.
Okay.
So Americanization, that's we have gained a lot from American style of living and households and companies. That's why they are winners. But still, it depends. From one point of view, we can say that we are losers. But from another, we can say that we have gained a lot of experience. So we are winners. It depends.
You were planning, I think you raised your hand.
Me?
Yes.
Country who sells more goods who exports more goods to other countries are winners.
Good. Right. So if you consider that countries in terms of their development, developed countries, are they winners or losers? Developed.
Yeah,
Winners.
They are mostly winners, right? There are cases where they lose, mainly, because those developed countries, they have everything, right? They have technology, they have human capital. The quality, the goods they produce or services is, highly demanded. If you just line up, hundreds of brands of smartphones over here,
You still use iPhones.
most probably, if you have make a choice, you will choose an iPhone. High quality, whatever. Okay? So, and they have, strong name, brand name. And what about developing countries? There are cases like China and India, right? Brazil. China and India, for example, they became so strong nation today
Because labor is cheap.
because of trade.
Now labor is cheap.
So their labor, the cheapness of labor will do nothing if they don't sell anything.
Still, an example of WTO, for example, the third losers because they were turned into raw material sources, and that's why they are losers.
Okay. So, for example, he mentioned about sub-Saharan countries, sub-Saharan African countries. So once they became more open, removed some tariffs, on vegetables and fruits. There are those cases. All farmers went bankrupt. And you visit that Africa, where salary is too low, they are consuming European vegetables and fruits. Okay? Now, Europeans, that rich nations, are supplying them with that poor countries, third world countries, with those vegetables and fruit. They are not even able to compete in terms of production of agricultural goods. Okay? Good. And losers we mentioned, let's a bit speed up. What about international trade? Who are the gainers or winners of international investment? Sorry.
Where the countries which are invested in.
Both countries.
No, like people, in terms of investment.
Yes, yes.
It's the companies who are investing. Because when they invest, they will do their own business. They will gain and like go back to their country.
No.
But here they might damage our environment. So in this kind of aspect, it will harm. It will be like harmful for us.
What about the employment? Like they employed two people here, like they're paying them salary, and then this salary goes to local business maybe, or some part maybe to import. And I mean, they're creating working places and making economy work, like multiplier effect and etc.
Okay. Yes.
In terms of employment, yes, it will be beneficial. But there are other aspects like environmental things. There might be pollution, higher like rate of pollution. So we should consider all spheres of it.
In case of our gold production, as you know, we have we have agreement with the United States that 30% of our gold will that were not produced but produced in our country moves to the USA and 70 for us. But still, they use only our human resources, and that's it. And what that she mentioned before, I mean, pollution and environmental issues. That's a big problem.
Yes. Okay. Therefore, we are talking about winners and losers. Okay. So in our forthcoming lectures and seminars, we will talk about the issue of externality. Okay. There we will consider it in specific detail. So, right. Once investment comes, it comes. The investors they invest because they want something to gain. And we are allowing to use our human capital, our physical capital, because we also want to gain something. As I said, to have more job opportunities or to bring new technology, okay? And as she said, there are some other parties, okay, which we call externalities, because of that investment they suffer. Because of, so some are winners, some are losers. All right? And based on investment, one big issue, okay, is dependence. Let's suppose if today countries like China, all right, where so much investment is there, if all investors decide to pool, because of some reason, to pool their investment in one day or in 1 week, then you will definitely find that that country will, in a short period of time, financial crisis. Okay.
But this will affect not only China, but us and another countries.
Everyone.
Everywhere.
Yes. So last one, international migration. Winners?
Winners? They are not winners.
Nobody?
No.
The country gets rid of, the country from where the migrants come, they get rid of, not unnecessary, it's not unnecessary, it's like extra people who couldn't find work here. This adds to salary to people who left there. I mean, if there is less people, the market price for worker will be higher, and the country which is getting rid of, they are always winning. Not always, but in most cases.
Okay.
Yeah, but he said it's true, and losers are here. What kind of countries? The countries who are developed and people who are moving to them. For example, like people move from India to America to seek jobs, and there they have to find their jobs. And if they don't find, like people who live there has to pay some
Taxes, yes.
Taxes, like money for their living. So in this kind of place, like local citizens always lose.
Okay.
And also salaries in that country where they come, I mean migrants, it will also go down.
Thank you very much. Now we have only 6 minutes left, so just a second. So winners, like countries like India, all right, they encourage, for example, they have special program to send their people abroad, okay, to develop countries, earn and send them remittance money, or learn skill and come back and implement. It works very well for India. Or there are other cases, for example, in Uzbekistan too. Now we need very good doctors. We have doctors, but they are not here, but they are in other country. So therefore we have special program. We are inviting them, please come back. We will pay you the same salary that you are getting there. We will provide you with apartments here in Tashkent, and we will give you all the opportunities. There are those kind of things, brain drain, we will discuss. Just fast, please. Which component of globalization is the most recent?
International trade?
Investment.
Migration.
No.
Okay, international trade, all of them, they existed. I mean that recent vastly changed, okay?
Immigration.
Investment.
Immigration, it was, in late 19th century,
Yeah.
at the end of, that time, all people wanted to go to the US.
But now it's
Europe.
like
It's
because
still
of
like
conflict in the Middle East and Africa, all people from Africa and Middle East are going to Europe.
No, I mean, that phenomena we saw in the past,
Okay.
and we are seeing, but it is international investment, okay? Why? Investment, it vastly increased significantly after the introduction of IT technologies, electronic, payments, blah, blah, blah. And then, what is the role of Uzbekistan in the process of globalization?
It used to be closer to other countries, but it's becoming more open. Like tourism is improving, and we are inviting more people to our
Thank you very much.
We are seeking for investment.
Compared to the past, now we are more open. We are supporting the trade. We are inviting investors.
Open now.
Now currency, now we have free exchange, no problem, right? Good. And last question, do industrialized countries support the liberalization of all components of globalization? No. Rich country, do they support international trade, migration, and investment?
No.
No.
Which one they don't?
Migration.
Okay, right. There are reasons, right? We see they don't want refugees, or they are arguing that other country people, they're taking away their jobs, blah blah blah. Main issue.
Even international trade is restricted in USA, for instance, mining, coal.
Okay.
It's protect and
So last one, you should know the relationship, the interconnection between these components. Okay. Each supports each other. Please think a bit more. You can find migration and investment. For example, if one person wants to invest, he or his people, they try to go to that country, they do survey, analyze. Once they find it, a place to be invested, then they invest, okay? Good job. So we have a video which I'm going to upload to the internet. You can watch, okay? It's about globalization. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I think I have to check someone's attendance.
Yes.